Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Beckett Now,
where we bring you the best in news, music, research, sports, and more.
I'm Carla Gozo.
And I'm Izzy Miller, and so exciting, it's our first show.
I know! Oh my gosh, I've done nothing but work on my dissertation for the last month, so this is a great change of pace, very excited to be here. And to all of our students out there with deadlines that are coming up, we know it's tough, but we're going to get through it.
Now, we can't start the show without mentioning everything that's going on in the news right now in Ukraine. So from all of us here at Beckett Now and Leeds Beckett, we stand with you, Ukraine. It's such tragic and devastating news.
So today's show is all about raising awareness on mental health issues and having those difficult conversations.
This week is Eating Disorder Awareness Week. The exact causes of eating disorders are unknown, but evidence has suggested that people who have gone through an eating disorder usually have also gone through some kind of difficult situation, emotional or even psychological trauma, which makes them vulnerable to developing an eating disorder.
There are so many different types of eating disorders, such as anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, to name a few, and they can affect men as well as women. An eating disorder is where people use food as a way to manage their feelings. It is estimated that around 725,000 people in the UK are living with an eating disorder, and it can affect any one of us.
Now joining us to give an expert opinion on this matter is Ursula Philpot, a freelance dietitian and senior lecturer here at Leeds Beckett University who specialises in eating disorders and mental health. Hi Ursula.
Hello.
So thank you so much for joining us. Considering this week is Eating Disorder Awareness Week, why don't we start by talking about some warning signs, maybe if there's some students or even some friends of students or parents or anyone that's watching, kind of what to look out for.
Yeah, sure. So I guess it's a change in behaviour from the normal. Somebody may be avoiding meals or putting meals in the bin, or suddenly becoming very aware of food, watching lots of food programmes, reading lots of recipe books, making lots of food but not necessarily eating it themselves. So there's a change in what's going in terms of eating behaviour. But you may also notice other changes, change in body shape, getting larger or smaller, or looking unwell, having thin hair, pale skin, fatigue, just not looking well or not wanting to engage, and particularly socially in social occasions around food. You may also notice a difference maybe in exercise or activity levels, so perhaps those have increased, or perhaps your friend is prioritising going to the gym or going running over, a significant social activity. So it could be lots of smaller things that you notice. There may be maybe they're going visiting the bathroom frequently after food, and you're wondering, is this that they're getting rid of food? It can be lots of sort of smaller signs and symptoms, really. But I guess if you're worried, it's something that you need to find a way of bringing up, really, and not ignoring. So when people are in recovery from eating disorders, they tell us, why did no one say something? Why did nobody pick this up with me?
I wanted to ask you about the kind of advice that you would give someone who has identified they have an eating disorder and they kind of want to figure out how to go about solving that problem for themselves.
Yeah, sure. So I guess it depends what sort of stage they're at. If you've got a sort of early stage where you're perhaps not too unwell with it, but you're thinking perhaps I've slipped into some disordered eating habits here, perhaps sort of post-lockdown or something similar, there's lots of great self-help materials online. So looking at the BEAT website, which is the eating disorders charity called BEAT, is a great start. There's lots of books on there to recommend for self-help as well. The second stage may be something called guided self-help, which is where you see a clinician who works in eating disorders, but you work through a workbook yourself with them. And then there's more specialist interventions, which are particular psychological treatments for eating disorders. So I guess the first step really is to go on something like the BEAT website, have a read, have a look at things. The second step is to see a GP. The GPs will know what are for the first, second and third line interventions for eating disorders, and they will refer you on to an appropriate group of people that can help.
For those who don't know, BEAT are doing, the theme of this Eating Disorder Week is apparently, if I'm right, in a medical student's whole training or degree, they receive less than 2 hours. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on that and what you think needs to be done and why this is an important?
Yeah, so Beat have run a campaign around this because what they're found talking to people with eating disorders is they've had a really varied experience going to see their GP. The GP is often the first port of call. You know, the person with the eating disorder is maybe reluctant to seek help, or you know, there's not very much problem recognition at that point. Eating disorders are of a nature where people tend to want to continue with the behaviours because they find them helpful and useful. They're sort of seen almost like a solution to a problem that's underneath, really, rather than necessarily a problem in itself. So sometimes people are reluctant to seek help, or even if they do seek help, are quite scared at that point, you know, what's going to happen to me. So that first contact with a GP can be really so crucial in meaning someone has a positive journey along recovery, or whether they think, well, I'm never telling anyone again because that went so badly. And I guess there is a sort of naivety sometimes with GPs because they haven't had the training. It's not down to anything else. It's simply lack of training. You know, that they maybe will not recognise that that person has an eating disorder because perhaps they don't look thin. So there's a sort of real myth out there in the sort of population that to have an eating disorder you have to look really thin and really unwell. And actually most people, the majority of people with eating disorders, over 45% of people with eating disorders are not underweight. They're a normal weight or overweight. So going to a GP when you're normal weight or overweight, saying I think I have a difficulty with food, sometimes you know, if the GP's not had training, they don't recognise that you've got an eating disorder, and so it's that the campaign is really trying to think about.
And because this is something that not too many people are aware of how eating disorders work. So I guess our final question for you would be, for someone who does have a loved one that is struggling with an eating disorder, how would you go about giving that person support?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, there's lots of hints and tips on the Beat website. And there's some other websites that are really good for parents or carers who are looking after someone with an eating disorder. So the Eva Munsby website is very good. There's ABC website again, so two really good resources there. But I guess I would say it's about listening to the person with the eating disorder. It's about encouraging them to talk and express how they feel. It's about not making any judgments, about asking how can I be helpful, not making any assumptions about how to be helpful. Certainly not telling people what to do, and not ignoring the problem either. So it's a little bit about saying, you know, this is what I've observed happening, trying not to sort of name the person themselves, but saying, you know, these are the behaviours that I'm seeing, or these are, you know, these are the ways that I can see that you're struggling. Can you tell me why you're struggling? You know, what would you like me to do? What would be helpful here? But not letting them at the same time, if they are saying, no, I don't want help, I don't want you involved, you know, not being too put off by that, but continuing to offer help and support, because there will be a time where they will often say, no, I do want help with it. Yeah.
Ursula, thank you so much for being here to share your professional insight about eating disorders. Now, Izzy, I know you have some personal experience with this sort of topic. Would you like to share that with us here?
Yeah, so I think I probably had a strange relationship with food when I was 16, started sort of villainising certain food groups and assumed that the root of all happiness was thinness. I just developed like a weird relationship with the gym, and I sort of went on like that for a while, and then it wasn't until my first year of uni where it became less of like a lifestyle and more of a coping mechanism, like Ursula was saying. It wasn't really it was just something I was doing to sort of control everything.
So what was the healing process for you like? So at some point you figured out that, okay, this is a problem and something that I need to work on, and how did you, go about
well, it's
that?
interesting what Ursula was saying about, you're kind of in denial about it. It was my last year of uni, and my friends and family sort of said, I think that there's a problem here. And then, I was just referred to the NHS eating disorder team. It's kind of a weird experience, a lot of in and out of hospitals and strange environments, but just fixing that relationship with food and realising that food is just food. It's not a scary It's not a scary thing.
It can even be something that you can enjoy.
Yeah, and training yourself to enjoy it and not villainising it, and we all need to eat, But it's kind of, I think it's always a work in progress. You're always going to have this weird view towards it. But
so how do you feel about your relationship with the disorder and eating now? How do you think it's progressed since the worst of it, really?
I think I think with the pandemic, it's kind of like the pandemic. We went through bad times with it, and it's what I have to realise is it's a coping mechanism. Some people, get really drunk when they're struggling with something, and I need to. That's how I recognise that it's not a healthy coping mechanism to skip meals,
Yeah.
and to, like I said, just view food just as what it is, food.
Food, yeah. So do you have anything that, like, if you knew anybody now who was struggling with an eating disorder, of course, Ursula has given some insight, but, like, for you as someone who's gone through it, what kind of advice could you give to someone who's, like, in the heat of it at the moment?
I think when you're in the heat of it, you're probably in denial, but definitely talking to people about it and not being kind of embarrassed about it or not treating it like a secret.
No,
because loads of people struggle with it, and it's a difficult thing, but it's something that you can recover from.
Of course. Well, Izzy, thank you so much for sharing such a personal story with us. Support is available for anyone who needs help or knows someone who might need help for any of the matters raised, so please find that support on the links via the screen.
Now performing live with us in the studio, we have Nicole, who is singing her new song, Double Up.
Sensei, sensei, sensei.
So we started in the first grade. So we started in the first grade when I thought about it. Life is a dice, so let me six-side on it. Oh, whoop. I flip a double, now I'm winning at it. Moon is my light, you see the script to write it. I double up, you see the dogs are fighting. A mimic was cool and trying to be about it. I double up, you see the dogs are fighting. The moon is my light, you see the script to write it. So we started in the first grade when I thought about it. Life is a dice, so let me six-side on it. Oh, whoop. I flip a double, now I'm winning at it. The moon is my light, you see the script to write it. I flip a double, see the dogs are fighting. A mimic was cool and trying to be about it. I flip a double, now I'm winning at it. The moon is my light, you see the script to write it. I'm out here trying to be somebody. I ain't playing games, I'm gonna be somebody. Okay, I'm riding hard to give to those who got me. Fed up of playing games and trying to be no phony. No, I keep it true with those who real. Hey, I keep it real with those ones who real. Ain't about the hype, don't give a
Sensei.
in my own lane, just trying to
Sensei.
started in the first grade when I thought about it. Life is a dice, so let me six-side on it. Oh, whoop. I flip a double, now I'm winning at it. The moon is my light, you see the script, I write it. I flip a double, see the dogs are fighting. A mimic was cool and trying to be about it. I flip a double, now I'm winning at it. The moon is my light, you see the script, I write it. We started in the first grade when I thought about it. Life is a dice, so let me six-side on it. Oh, whoop. I flip a double, now I'm winning at it. The moon is my light, you see the script, I write it. I flip a double, see the dogs are fighting. A mimic was cool and trying to be about it. I flip a double, now I'm winning at it. The moon is my light, you see the script, I write it.
Thanks, Natalia and Nicole. That was amazing.
Oh my
So
gosh, we're so
fun.
glad that was here. So now from one artist to another, we are also joined by Saul Bara, who was a previous member of the Yorkshire Terrier, a hip-hop group from the early 2000s. His whole world changed when he was diagnosed with gastric cancer, and now he is raising money to raise awareness for this terrible disease. Hi Saul, welcome to
Hiya.
the studio.
How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
You're welcome.
So just to get started, we wanted to ask you a little bit how you found out about your diagnosis and how that experience was for you.
Well, basically, I was just in a lot of pain in my stomach. So I had maybe 6 months to 9 months of I was in terrible pain. So I went to the doctors. I just went to my GPs, and I thought it was just like something wrong with my stomach, like
Like IBS or something.
Yeah, something, that's what I thought. It was something like that. So they just gave me a prescription, gave me things to do with that, to stop like Gaviscon and things like that. And it just got worse.
Right.
So at one point, and it stopped me from eating. So literally, I was struggling to even to drink water. That was bloating me up.
Wow.
So then I went back to the doctors, and then they gave me something else, and then obviously they booked me in to do it, to get the an endoscopy, the camera down my throat.
Right.
And then once they did that, they found a mass in my stomach, and then they had to take some biopsies. And it was looking like there was a tumour in there, but there wasn't sure straight away. So then I went back a few weeks later and did another biopsy, and then they found out that there was a tumour in there, and it's basically where my esophagus meets my stomach.
Right.
So it's literally right in the junction, and that's why it was struggling to eat. So once they found it, and they did a biopsy, and I did a scan, they found out that it was already spread into I had mets in my liver, so it already spread into another part of my body.
Yeah.
So we've my cancer is called a GIST, so it's gastrointestinal stromal tumour. So it's just usually within your GI tract.
Can you talk a little bit about the treatment plan that you were put on?
Yeah, so basically with the cancer that I have, regular chemotherapy doesn't work. So you either got to get surgery, which because where mine is, I'm not that lucky that I can't, it's a bit too late, so I can't really have surgery. Surgery is not an option. So they do targeted therapy, which is a tablet form of chemotherapy that you just take once a day, and it just targets the actual tumour.
Wow, okay.
So
it's called imatinib.
we do know one of the reasons that you're here with us today is
Yeah.
because we know that you're doing an event called Saul's Run for Life.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
You say is happening in May. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm doing a race for life for for Cancer Research UK, and just to raise awareness and raise money for the research side of cancer, because I think that helps a lot. And yeah, until you get diagnosed with it yourself, you don't understand it. It's like everybody who's got it, you get it. It's hard to understand something when you're not living it yourself.
Yeah.
And you always see people around you that might have it, but until you get it yourself, that's when it hits home.
Yeah.
And when they say one in two people.
1 in 2
So
people
is it
have
two in
like
one?
yeah, it is
one
one
in
in,
two,
yeah,
yeah,
1 in
yeah.
2 people that you know
Through
in
your
life will have
lifetime, you will
go
probably
through cancer at some point.
Yeah.
So you do probably know someone in your life that
And
has
with
gone
me,
through
I was
it.
kind of, to get what I've got, it usually affects, because it's a rare type of cancer, so it's like only 900 people in the UK a year, and it's mainly like over 50 and 60s. So for me, I was just turning 41, so for me it was quite young to get it at that time, yeah.
What would you say, final question, if to bring awareness to this type of cancer, what would you tell people to look out for? What kind of warning signs?
Anything really, if there's something that you feel different, because a big thing was the fatigue. So when you've got no energy, you just brush it off to getting older or whatever. But I think that was a big part of how I was feeling.
Thank you so much, Saul. So for anyone affected by this issue, you will find support via the links on screen. And that's it from us today. First show over.
Yeah, I know. Well, thank you so much to everybody that watched. Remember, be inspired.
Be educated.
Be exceptional. Be
Be
Beckett
Beckett
now.
now.
Bye.